Well, good afternoon. Welcome back to another installment of Friday's Heroes. I always say this, but it's my favorite time of the week. It gives me a chance to brag on our employees and our firefighters and our police officers and people that put their lives on the line every day, and to show people in Albuquerque just what a tremendous group of individuals we have that collectively work on their behalf at the city. So today, let me get right into it. I'm going to introduce you today to Justin Mesch. Justin Mesch is an Albuquerque firefighter. And basically, I'm going to let Chief Breen tell you the basics of the story, the details. But the gist of it is, while responding to an incident, an apartment fire, Justin basically burned himself on his hand and his leg, but yet he continued to search a flame-engulfed building looking for a victim. And Firefighter Mesch risked his life in an attempt to save another, and despite being injured, he continued to do his job. And his actions reflect the courage and the determination of our firefighters and our police officers, and this is why we call these guys heroes. So I'd like to bring up Chief Breen to tell you more of the details about Justin's situation, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. I'm here to tell Justin's story. On the night of January 29th, fire was reported at a two-story fourplex apartment building somewhere up in the Northeast Heights. Upon arrival, Engine 9 reported heavy fire coming from one of the two second-story apartments. In standard form, the engine company lieutenant assumed command and directed the firefighters to advance a hose line up the second-story exterior stairwell in order to control the fire and to do a primary search of the residence. It was reported that one victim was in one of the two apartments that were on fire. In the course of extinguishing the fire, an extreme fire behavior event occurred that engulfed Justin Mesch in flames. During the course of that, he burned his left hand and left thigh. Despite his injuries, he continued to fight the fire, completed a primary search, and after the fire was completely extinguished, Justin exited the structure and got some medical care from one of our paramedics. What Justin Mesch did during the course of this fire is the very essence of what we're all about, saving lives. And despite his injuries, he continued to fight the fire and look for victims. And it was a great pleasure that I introduce Justin Mesch. If you want to say a few words. Well, if you'd like to ask some questions.
Well, we can make Justin. Yeah. I appreciate what you're saying. At least you're my height. That's great. I have to tell a story. I got a chance to telephone Justin on the day he was injured, and he'd been back from the hospital, and I can just say he's a little more coherent today than he was when I got a chance to talk to him. But listen, we appreciate your efforts as citizens of Albuquerque. Grateful mayor, say thank you. Congratulations to you, and thanks for all that you do.
Thank you.
All right, take care. We're going to actually have three events for you today to talk about. So next, I'd like to bring up talk about our employee of the week, Daphne Martin. How are you today? And I'm going to introduce Lou Hoffman here in just a few minutes to tell her story. But the essence of this is Daphne works in our fleet management division, and she's come up with a system and some ideas to save the taxpayers money. And I'm all for that as a mayor, not just during these fiscally difficult times, but any time a city employee can help us create efficiencies, that's a good thing. So, Lou, why don't you come up and tell Daphne's story?
Thank you, if I may. This story really is about, literally, the story is about the nuts and bolts about how city government works. Daphne's the senior office assistant in our fleet management department. Fleet has a capacity to work on some vehicles, does a lot of work for APD as an example, but there are a lot of off-road vehicles and other vehicles that we can't actually manage to maintain in our own facilities. So we have contracts with other vendors to do this sort of work. This is important to the community, too, because in this case we have 130 vendors who actually do contracts with the city for maintaining vehicles. The city has literally thousands of vehicles that it has to take care of. This also represents a source of employment and business for the rest of the community that's important for us to sustain. And in this particular case, Daphne, who's been an employee for less than a year, with her attention to detail and the mastery of city's purchasing regulations that she mastered as a part of this process, was actually able to get all the insurance contracts in place, all the documentation necessary for these 130 vendors in order for the city to get the work done it needed, but also to make sure these folks had the employment that they needed. So she did that in short order on her own initiative. Ann O'Brien with Fleet, who's here, nominated her, and thank you for noticing this excellent work. And while this is just nuts and bolts, it's a very important part of the city because without it we wouldn't function. So, thank you.
Thank you. So Daphne, on behalf of us as a city, I'd like to present you with your certificate, a letter for your personnel file as well.
Thank you.
And our first issuance of a brand new, we ordered some mugs for the Employee of the Week purposes. So you're the first one to get the new blue mug. So thank you again on the behalf of the taxpayer. And Ann, thank you so much for all you do for us at the city as well. So congratulations to you and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
You bet. Thank you. So I'd like to move on just briefly to our last presentation for the day, and I want to talk about the Chevron Bandit just a little bit. Last week, as you know, the Albuquerque Police Department linked Clinton James Walker to 9 gas station robberies. 9. 6 of those robberies occurred at Chevron gas stations. So APD was able to make an arrest thanks to Carlene Seifert here. And Miss Seifert actually spotted Walker leaving a Chevron station, followed his car, and called his license plate and location into the police department, allowing officers to basically to make an arrest. So for us to be successful in our fight against property crime, we need to get the entire community involved. We talked about that several weeks ago. Ms. Seifert did the right thing by watching the vehicle, not getting involved personally with the incident, but calling the police. And this is exactly what we're talking about. You know, when we're fighting crime, it's really, and I say this over and again, it's a 3-sided equation. You've got criminals, you've got public safety, we've got our fine police department in Albuquerque, and we've got the citizenry. And as long as it's 2 against 1, we're going to win this fight. And so this is the kind of thing that we're talking about, where we don't want citizens putting themselves in danger, but we want the eyes and ears out there to call our police officers and give them the information that they need. So Chief Schultz, why don't you come up and finish telling the story as well.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and I too want to thank Ms. Seifert for helping the Albuquerque Police Department get a dangerous criminal off the streets. As the Mayor has said several times, these are career criminals. Mr. Walker had one of those rap books that we talk about very often. His criminal history went back as far as 2002. And if it wasn't for Ms. Seifert getting involved, we might not have caught Mr. Walker on February 9th. So on behalf of the department, I want to thank you for helping us get him off the streets. We've now linked him to a total of 10 robberies. He's probably obviously good for even more than that, but as we continue this investigation, we're just glad that he's off the streets. And I know the folks at the gas stations and all those folks that work there are extremely happy as well, because their lives are much safer as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And as we talk about property crime, we mentioned it several weeks ago, 8 out of 10 crimes committed in Albuquerque are property crimes. And many times property crimes accelerate into more violent crimes. And so the more we can do to get property criminals off the street, the better off we are. So I would like to present you with an official officer mug from the Albuquerque Police Department for your efforts. And thank you once again from a grateful mayor.